What's up, people? I'm back, and yes, you read the title correctly. I have joined a Pokemon Draft League, the PPFC, also known as the Pantry Pokemon Fight Club. Shout out my boy Matt, aka Don Schnack, as some of you may know him as, because this is his draft league he does in his Discord every year, and it's freaking hype. This is season 3 of the league, but I've also been in the past 2 seasons. This is my first season, but I decided, you know what, this time around, why don't I make some videos on it, because why not? I mean, I may as well, and I haven't done that before on this channel, so hope you guys are looking forward to the draft content on the channel. I think it's going to be fun, but some of you might be wondering, what is a Pokemon Draft League? Some of you may not know. Well, don't worry, because I'll fill you in real quick. So basically, right, how it works is you have a bunch of people get together, and they're all like coaches for a team, right? And they all take turns picking Pokemon to have on the team, and all the Pokemon are worth a certain amount of points, and basically everyone just takes turns going around picking Pokemon until like they use up all their points or whatever, so they can have a filled out team of 10 to 12 mons is at least how we're doing it in this draft league. I've seen, some leagues have slightly different rules, like maybe like just a set number of guys, but whatever. Basically, you just you try to make the best team you can within the limitations that are given to you, which is the amount of points you have and also what Pokemon you have available to you, because like if someone picks Dragon Ball, right, then only they get to use Dragon Ball. Like, it's their mon, it's on their team, and no one else gets to use it. So you have to, as the draft goes on, more and more mons get picked, and that sort of narrows your options as to what you can have on your team. So that's basically how that works. Hopefully that makes sense, you guys. So I figured, as a little introductory to the draft league, as my first video on the matter, I figured I'd just give you guys a little rundown of what my team is for this season, so you guys can all be familiar with that. And yeah, so I guess we can just hop into it. So for the first round of the draft, I was like in the middle for the order of picks, which isn't like a great spot, but yeah. So I didn't get a chance to pick any of these guys, the top 5, because they were all picked by me before it was my turn, which is not surprising because all these guys are broken. And if any of them were still available by the time I picked, I would have absolutely just scooped them up without hesitation, because they're just so good. But none of them got to me, which isn't that surprising. But there was a Pokemon that did manage to get to me, that I thought to myself, if this Pokemon is still available, that I gotta pick it up no matter what, because it's just so good. And that mon is none other than Enamorus. Now, this Pokemon is stupid, ridiculously good. It's worth 17 points, which is most valuable Pokemon on my team in terms of point value, which isn't surprising because of my first pick of the draft. But it definitely deserves to be 17 points, because this thing is nutty. First of all, look at these stats. These stats are crazy, and also this thing's just so good with the Moonblast plus Earth Power. The Fairy ground coverage is insane. But beyond that, it's got other great moves like Mystical Fire, Focus Blast, etc. Draining Kiss and Setup. It's got Calm Mind, Agility. If I wanted to, I could even run like Superpower with the Contrary and have like a physical set. So this thing's very, very good. But the main reason I wanted to pick it, while I was so eager to have it as my first pick, is because it's a Fairy type, and a freaking good Fairy type at that. I would say it's the second best Fairy type in this format. The first one being Iron Valiant, but that was picked before me. And I would really, really wanted to have a good Fairy type for this season, because if you guys didn't know, there's not a whole lot of Fairy types in Scarlet and Violet. Like, you have pretty limited options, and there's even less fairies that are like actually consistently good. So when I saw Enamorus was still around, I was like, well, like I gotta pick this up because I just wanted to have that super good fairy type just locked in off rip. So yeah, that was my thought process behind Enamorus as my first pick. Gotta say, pretty happy with it. And then for my second pick, I was going to pick up Roaring Moon, which was still around, which was a bit surprising to me that no one had picked it yet. However, unfortunately, the person who went right before me picked Roaring Moon instead, which kind of bummed me out because I thought these two together would have been insane. But someone else picked it, which I guess is understandable. So instead of Roaring Moon, I had to do some quick thinking to decide who I was going to pick second and who I was going to pair up with Enamorus. And after some thought behind it, I considered some mons like King Gambit came to mind, but after some consideration, I decided on Heatran for my second pick. I don't have to tell you guys, Heatran's one of the best mons ever. This thing's so sick. I love this guy, and does a lot for my team. First off, gives me Steel type, which, much like Fairy type, is super good and always good to have. I think you should always have like both those types on your team, if possible, in a draft. I don't really think I can undersell the importance of Steel types. In my first season of the PPFC, my Steel type was Berserker, which was not a great Steel type, to say at least. I mean, he is a Steel type, but he's not the best. And I kind of learned from that I should always have like a really solid Steel type whenever possible. So in season 2, I had Bronzong, which he's a good Steel type, but he's also I wouldn't say he's the best. He's definitely good, but he doesn't have recovery. Like he is like a little bit predictable. So like I wasn't upset with Bronzong, but I was I could have done better. So this time around I was like, screw it, let me just get Heatran, one of the best Steel types ever, right off the bat as my second pick, and I gotta say I do not regret it. Heatran gives me Mondstadt of Stealth Rocks, which is always important whenever you're playing singles. And he's just Heatran. He's just the GOAT. Also has very good synergy with Enamorus defensively because a lot of stuff Enamorus is weak to, like Ice and Poison, Steel. Heatran can take that on, resist those hits, or be immune to it in the case of Poison. And likewise, Enamorus can handle the stuff that Heatran's weak to, namely grounded fighting, obviously being immune to ground, and quad resisting fighting. So these two are pretty good together, and I was looking pretty good at this point in the draft. I was feeling pretty confident with these two. And then for the next round, we changed the picking order every other round, and for this time I got the wheel pick. And basically what that means is I was last in the order, which sounds bad, but how it works is it's a snake draft. So basically, we randomize the orders, right? And then we go down the list, and then once it gets to the bottom, we go back around in the reverse order, going all the way back to the first person. So the person who goes last gets to go first again when we go backwards around the draft order again, if that makes sense. So basically, I got 2 picks right off rip, which is always amazing. I think it was at a pretty good point in the draft, right? Because I wouldn't, like, if I got a wheel pick like first round, that would have been okay with that, but I kind of would have preferred to get like as good a Pokemon as I can as like right away instead of having to wait. But now like I already had these 2 Mons on my team, so now I could like other people could pick, and then whatever 2 Mons that were left, or not whatever Mons that were left that were available to me, I could just pick up 2 of them and just like rock out with them, So I had some options available to me. I was, wasn't quite sure what to do at first because the wheel pick is powerful. Getting 2 Mons back to back is always a good thing. So I had to think on it for a bit, and I came to the decision. since these two guys were left, I was like, well, I may as well get them because they're so good. And those mons were Ting Lu and Salamence. So Ting Lu, he's freaking he's stupidly good. He's so bulky, it's ridiculous, but he's also pretty strong. Like 110 attack, you can definitely do something with that. He's not just like one note. He does have some offensive presence to him, but you know, he just gives me a ton of bulk for my team. Also gives me my ground type, which is always crucial to have. So now I have electric immunity. Also gives me a dark type, which is nice. I have a sturdy ghost resist and all that. Gives me another rocker besides Heatran, and also a mon spikes, which is always hype. And he's just good. He's just bulky. Ground type does his thing, can do some damage if he needs to, and he's just like solid mon for my team. And then we had Big Mence, who I wanted to get because he rounds out my team by giving me a Dragon Fairy Steel core with these two plus him. Dragon Fairy Steel, 3 phenomenal types, and I'm super glad that I have, you know, they were some of the first mons I picked up, because they're all good and strong, and I can bring them to a lot of matches and have them do well. Mence is, you know, really needs no introduction. You know, look at those stats. He's awesome. He's got great abilities. He got insane move pool. I can run him a ton of different ways. I could run him physically. I can run him specially if I want to. I can set up with him with like a D-dance type of thing. I could even run him defensively if I wanted to. I have a lot of options with this mon, and I was really glad to pick him up. You know, I kind of figured, well, if I couldn't have Roaring Moon, I can have the next best thing. And this guy's definitely a solid pick. So at this point, as you can see, these four guys are looking mighty strong. But is a little bit of a downside in that I have quite a big ice weakness. You know, Mence is 4 times weak to ice, obviously, and then Ting Lu and Enamorus are also ice weak, which is not great. I do have Heatran, who's probably like one of the best and like just like sturdiest ice resist in the game, but you know, I was feeling like, you know, it would have been more comfortable if I could have had another mon to switch in. So for my next pick, after we randomized the orders again, I got second, which was awesome because, you know, that just meant, you know, the start of the new round, I had like almost not the first pick, not quite, but like I could just scoop up the next mon I wanted right away to just round out my team. Just very good for me. And the mon I decided to pick up was none other than Toxapex. Yes, I know. I'm sorry, guys. I let you down. This is the part where I tell you that I am the villain of this draft league. I know you guys expected better from me, but well, here we are. But you know, in all seriousness, Pex, while it is, you know, we all know Pex and how annoying it is. Pex just did so much for my team. First of all, give me that ice resist I wanted. Give me a nice bulky water type, which is super sick. Also give me a grounded poison type, which is nice because that means I can send this thing in and absorb any T-spikes if my opponent that week is trying to set those up. I have a mon that can get rid of them on switching, which is always good. But also just I feel like Pex was kind of like, it was kind of crucial for my team because the people I was fighting in my division, they had some strong Pokemon on their team, like their teams like Azumarill and Sneasler, who like they gave a lot of trouble to my first 4 guys, like kind of messed me up, and I didn't have a good answer for mons like that. But Pex gave me a reliable answer for those mons, being able to switch in and resist those hits, and it's just really solid for my team. I was initially looking at Quillfish for a water poison type, because, you know, I was thinking Quillfish, you know, he's a low point guy, but he's really sick. So I was kind of thinking, later on I might pick him up, but then, it was already my turn. I was like, well, I mean, Pex is still here, so may as well, because Qwilfish is sick, and I love him, but like, Pex is just a way more sturdy wall than he is, so that was what I ended up going for. And I mean, Pex is annoying, but at least it did get nerfed this gen. Recover only has APP, and now it doesn't have like Scald and Knockoff anymore. So you can say it's maybe a little bit more fair that I am using it this time around. But regardless, Pex definitely was a nice addition to the team. Also, just gave me like a ton of bulk, like this thing plus Ting Lu, and like even Heatran. Like these, I just got such sturdy Pokemon on my team that can take hits all day, which is sick. But now some of you may have seen my team and noticed something. I have a crucial weakness with this team of 5, because these 5 mons are insane. They're stupidly good together. But I do have a bit of an issue, which is that I have no hazard removal on my team. And hazard removal is always important to have, because you don't want people just sending up hazards on you and then you get worn down. So none of my mons so far had hazard removal, and that was bad. I had to fix that ASAP, because there's not a ton of good hazard removers in the game, because a lot of mons lost defog, and there's only so many rapid spinners. So I had to hurry up and get a good mon for removal before they were all gone. Fortunately, even though I was like second pick that round, and I had to wait for everyone to go after me, and then for that to go all the way back around to me, I had to wait a long time for my next pick. But fortunately, the mon I still wanted was still there by the time it got to me, which I was super glad about, because I was worried other people were looking at it, and I really wanted to have it because I felt like it rounded out my team so well. And that mod was none other than the Decidueye. The Decidueye, first off, crucially, he has defog, gives me hazard removal, exactly what I needed. He's also a grass type, so I now have a Fire Water Grass Core with him plus Pex and Heatran, which is always nice to have. He's also a ghost type, so he can block Rapid Spin, which is cool. He also has moves like U-Turn and Knockoff, which none of my other mons had. And I think those are always good moves to have. I don't know if I'd say they're essential, mandatory, but in my opinion, it never hurts to have mons with these moves, because they're just so useful in almost every situation. And they just do so much for your team. Just being able to get rid of items or easily switch out is always nice things to have. But that's not all Decidueye has, because I didn't just pick him up to be my defogger or my grass type. I also picked him so he could be one of my Terra captains. Now, I should explain how we handled Terra in our draft week. Basically, you can have these things called Terra captains, which are basically, those are the only mons on your team that are allowed to Terra. You can't just Terra any mon, because that would make team prep way too much of a headache. You can only have specific Pokemon on your team that can use terrestrialization, and those mons are limited to 3 Terra types that they can turn into. So you have to pick a set 3 types, and one of those types has to be a stab type, a type Pokemon already has, and that just the reason it's like that is to make team prep easier, because even if you only had specific mons that could Terra, if they could turn into any type, that would be kind of a nightmare to try to prepare for when you're fighting your opponent. But when you only have a specific 3 that's already predetermined that they could turn into, then it makes it a lot easier to prep for. So basically, you had 15 points you could spend for your Terra captains, and how many points it took to captain a mon was the same number of points that the Mon was worth, normally in the draft, and only Pokemon that were worth 9 points or lower were allowed to Terra. So, no crazy, high point guys like Heatran or Enamorus Terraring. There was none of that. It was only Mons worth 9 points and below. And Decidueye was worth 9 points, meaning, it took 9 of my 15 points I had to choose a Terra Captain, which is a lot. But if you ask me, I think it's well worth it, because I think one of the main things that always held Decidueye back, aside from like maybe its stats, was its typing, which, because Grass Ghost it's not the worst typing ever, definitely not, but it's definitely, I don't think it's always useful in every situation, and being able to turn into a different type, like say water, that's just gonna be more helpful in more situations. I think really does a lot for Decidueye. It makes them a whole lot more viable. So yeah, I did. As for my Terra types I chose for Decidueye, one of them was water. I also picked Ghost, because again, I had to pick one of my stab types. I figured Ghost would be good, because then I could get like the boost on my Ghost moves and just kind of spam them. And then for my third type, I chose Dark, which may seem like kind of a strange choice when I already have Terra Ghost, but I think it was still a good choice for me, because it gives me Dark Stab, so I can just moves like Knock Off and Sucker Punch become way stronger and have a nice offensive Dark type, which I don't have, because Ting-Lu's my only other Dark type, and he's like, again, he does have good attack, but he's not super offensive, and his only good Dark move really is Throat Chop. So I wanted to have another option for a Dark type that could just like throw out these strong moves like Knock Off and Sucker Punch, and plus I think Dark is also pretty good defensively, at least on the Decidueye, because since he is a Ghost type, he is weak to Ghost and Dark. But if I turn into a Dark type, then well, now I resist those types. So yeah, that was my logic behind that. So so at this point, my team was looking pretty good. However, there was one issue. If you look at my Mons, a lot of them are pretty slow. Specifically, these two are very, very slow. Decidueye and Heatran, not the fastest things. My fastest Mons at this point were Salamence and Enamorus, which they're pretty fast. Like, they're definitely not slow Mons by any means, but I think in draft you definitely want to have like just some really, really fast Mons. Like, I would say like 120 and above, it's ideal to have at least one Mon with that kind of speed, because in draft I think having speed is super important, because if you have a super fast Mon, then it means your opponents have to invest in speed EVs in order to outspeed you, because if you just have a slow team, like all your Mons are slow, then your opponent doesn't really have to worry about speed creeping. They can just put their EVs into other stuff like offenses or bulk or whatever. So I think having speed is important also, because if you have a super fast Mon that's like faster than your opponent's entire team, then you don't have to worry about investing fully in speed EVs. You can just invest however much you need to outspeed most of the Mons on the other guy's team, and then you can put those EVs somewhere else on your build. So I think having fast Mons is super important, and again, 106 is not slow by any means, but definitely I wanted to have some more speed for my team at this point. So I looked at what my options were, and I decided, you know what, I don't just want speed, I want all the speed. I want Regieleki on my team. So this thing is the fastest Pokemon in the game, 200 base speed, crazy. This thing, most matches, I don't have to run any speed EVs on this guy, and it'll still be faster than my opponent's entire team, which is super, super sick. Aleki also gives me some more stuff I needed. It gives me another hazard remover, which is always great. It gives me another Mon that can pivot with Volt Switch. Also give me an electric type, which I think is always good to have because, electric moves are just, generally pretty strong and like nice to throw out. And also gives me another flying resist, which I think is always good to have because if you look at my team, my only other resist was Heatran, who is a good resist, but I kind of wanted another one, so Regieleki gave me that also. And yeah, Lucky, he's just a cool guy. Now he is worth 9 points in our draft. However, we had a rule that you could not make Regieleki your Terra captain because if he could go for like Terra Blast Ice, you'd just be broken, and you would not be balanced at all. Because in this Smogon tiers right now, Regieleki's Uber, he's banned because of Terra Blast Ice and all that. So for the sake of keeping him balanced in this draft league, he's not allowed to Terra, which I think is pretty fair, honestly. But even so, I still think he's a great mon to have. Even with his somewhat limited move pool, he still has cool options. He gives me a pretty good mon to set up dual screens if I wanted to do that. I have that option with him. He's pretty good at doing that because he's so fast. You can just get him up, volt switch out, all that stuff. Yeah, he's just a like strong, fast electric type, which I think is always good to have for your team. And also, gets rid of hazards again, which is very crucial. So yeah. And at this point in the draft, I was kind of chilling. I was like, what, I got my team's looking mighty strong. I don't really have that many glaring weaknesses with my team, and so when I'm at this point where I'm feeling pretty comfortable with my team and my draft, I like to look at the teams of other people that I'm going to be fighting and see if there's anything I have to worry about, and if there's anything I could be more prepped for when fighting them to kind of help inform my decision making for who else I should draft. And looking at my opponents, there was one person who had Galarian Moltres on their team, and another person who had Iron Jugulis, and those are both two strong dark flying types that are can really throw out some powerful stab moves, which was a little bit scary for my team because I didn't have anything that could switch into both dark and flying. Like I have flying resists and I have dark resist, but I don't have a mon that can resist both. So those mons were looking a little scary for my team, and so I decided there was one mon that was still around that could handle those guys quite well, and that was Diancie. So I decided to pick it up next. Diancie is another like slow bulky mon, but I think it's still really good. It gives me another fairy type, which is pretty hype because I wasn't sure if I would be able to get more than one, but now I have two, which I think is still pretty good because for one thing, fairy types are just always good, but also it gives me an offensive fairy with an Amorous and a defensive one with Diancie, so I think that's pretty good. Diancie, it again, it is more slow bulk. It does repeated typing, but I think it was still a very good pick for my team because it's another mon that can get up hazards, which is probably I didn't really need more at this point, but I think it's still a nice thing to have because that means like the more mons I have that can set up hazards, that means I have like more options for what mons I can bring each match. Like I'm not limited to just like one rocker and like, okay, if I want rocks I have to bring this mon every match, you know what I'm saying? And also it gives me I can choose which mon I want to be my hazard remover, which is nice because it frees up my other mons to not have to run those moves if I don't want to. So that's pretty good. Also Diancie is pretty sick mon, I gotta be honest, because it gets some really nice moves. It's got Diamond Storm, which is amazing. It's got Draining Kiss, Body Press, Moonblast. It's got a lot of cool tricks up its sleeves. It also has Baton Pass, which gives me another mon that can like pivot out, because we are allowing Baton Pass in this league. Just the rule is you're not allowed to pass stats. You can just just use it by itself to just switch out, which I think is a nice role because it gives mons like Diancie more versatility, you know, because now it has an option to switch when it wouldn't have without Baton Pass. Also, I kind of liked having the rock type, which is a little weird because, you know, like most of the time rock types aren't very good, and I wouldn't say it's super crucial to have a rock type, as long as you have, you know, I think the most important thing as far as rock coverage goes is just having stealth rocks, right? If you have that, I think that's good enough. I don't think like having a rock type is mandatory, but I did kind of want to have one with Diancie because someone else that I was going to be fighting also had Mouse Hold, which, you know, could be a little scary. And you know, I do have, you know, already normal resist with Heatran and an immunity with Decidueye, but Diancie just gave me another one that you know, just made me a little more resilient. So yeah, all in all, I think Diancie was a solid pick, and I was really happy to get it. So next up, at this point in the draft, I was like, I want a fighting type because I didn't have one yet, and I think, you know, it's always kind of a smart move when you're in draft league to like get like a mid to low point fighting type later in the draft, because there's just so many, you have so many options for fighting types at that point, because, you know, obviously there are like high tier fighting types you can get right off the bat, like Iron Valiant, or, you know, like what else did I got here, Annihilate, Sneasler. Like there's some really strong fighting types out there, but there's also a lot of really solid ones that you can get that are lower tiers. So initially I was looking at stuff like Hisuian Sneasel, which I thought was a pretty good option because, you know, he's fast and he's, you know, honestly pretty strong. He's just like a mini Sneasler, has good moves. I was also looking at thinking potentially Tauros, just like regular Paldean Tauros, and you know, thinking about maybe making him a Terra Captain. I thought, you know, he could do some stuff with that. But then I was like my only mono with knockoff right now is Decidueye, and I kind of want to have a fighting type that gets knockoff, because, you know, I think it's just that's nice to have, and I also just, you know, could have used another mono with knockoff. So I was looking what fighting types were left that also got knockoff, and I was looking at Hariyama for a bit, and, you know, I did consider it, but I was like, that's another like slow bulky mon for my team. I kind of already have enough of those, so I was kind of a bit iffy on Hariyama. But then I looked, and to my amazement, there was one fighting type that was still left this late in the draft and no one had picked yet. And I was like, well, I mean, if no one else is gonna pick them, then I guess, you know, I mean, I may as well, right? It may as well be me. And that was Gallade. Super good mon. If you guys didn't know, this guy got a huge buff in Scarlet and Violet because he now has Sharpness as an ability, which basically Sharpness boosts the power of cutting and slicing moves by 1.5. So stuff like Psycho Cut, Aqua Cutter, Night Slash, Leaf Blade, X Scissor, like all these bunch of moves that Gallade gets are now just like way strong. Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword's a big one because that's like his main stab. Also gets boosted. So he's got all these strong moves. He also got just like insane coverage, like just like from that list of moves I mentioned. But also, again, he's a fighting type with knockoff, which I wanted. He's got like elemental punches and stuff. He's got super good coverage, which is great because it makes him really versatile. I can give him whatever coverage I need to take on my opponent's team, which is always good in draft. Now, in hindsight, I did kind of wish that instead of Gallade, I picked Hoopa Unbound this part of the draft, because, you know, for some reason Hoopa Unbound was also still around at this point, which is insane to me. I don't know why no one picked him, but I do kind of wish I picked him instead, because again, like I mentioned when talking about Decidueye, would have given me that nice offensive dark type that I wanted. And, you know, that meant that when, like, you know, I could have done something besides like Terra Dark on Decidueye. And also just this thing's freaking insane. I just look at these stats, and also it just has a nutty move pool. But honestly, just like the main reason of like I kind of wish I picked him. I just thought like it'd be funny if I had him on my team, because like just look at all these mons. Just look at all these mons with Hoopa there. Like it just would have been insane. Just like a just absurdly good draft team. So I thought it would have been funny, but at the time I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just thinking I wanted to get my fighting type. I know someone else ended up picking Hoopa, which I did, try to talk to them and like do something like, hey, maybe we could, do a little trade. I could give you Gallade for my Hoopa, or Gallade for your Hoopa, but they declined that offer, which is understandable, I suppose. But you know what? It's still fine, because Gallade, he's still an awesome mon to have. I'm definitely excited to use him. Again, just gives me so much options for coverage. And also it gives me, he's another strong physical attacker for my team, because at this point I didn't really have that many of those besides Salamence. I did have some other guys that could do some damage on the physical side, like Tinglu, and Decidueye if I wanted to make it physical, but no real hard hitters aside from Mence, so Gallade gave me another one of those, which is very nice to have. So at this point, I had my eyes on the other mon I wanted to have be my Terra Captain, and I was, again, I was a little nervous because I figured, a lot of other people would be thinking about him. I was like, oh god, am I gonna get sniped? Is someone else gonna pick him? I was getting nervous, but fortunately, it came back to me, and no one else had picked him. So I decided, you know what, it's time. It's got to be me. So my next pick was Cryogonal. I think this mon is really, really cool. No pun intended. Anyways, so why him? Well, he's another spinner, which is, in my opinion, you can never have too much hazard removal in draft, especially this gen when there's not a lot of mons to have it. And also gives me some ice coverage, which is a little weird, because normally I'm usually of the opinion that like most ice types aren't that good, and you don't really need to have an ice type on your team. As long as you have a mon that has ice moves, then that's usually good enough, because ice as a type to have on a mon, usually not the greatest, but as far as like offensive coverage goes, it's really, really nice, because it hits a lot of stuff for super effective. Like ground types, flying types, dragon types, all that stuff. So it's really, really good to have. And at this point, I didn't really have many mons with ice moves, because normally, most of the time, I would say like you would have like your water type would get ice moves, and then you can just like run ice moves on that and like have that for coverage. But of course, my water type is Pex, who has like no offensive capability. So even though it does get ice moves, it can't really use them well. And besides that, the only other mon I had that had any sort of ice move was like Gallade with Ice Punch. So I kind of wanted to have some more ice coverage on my team, because it's just always nice to have, I think. But that whole thing about ice types themselves not being that good is it's a little bit managed in the situation, because Cryogonal was my next Terra Captain after Decidueye. So obviously I had to make it Terra Ice, because it has to be a stab type, which is like it's kind of whatever, because I'm probably not gonna Terra Ice this thing, because I don't really want it to be an ice type. Instead, for my Terra types, my other Terra types after that, I picked Steel, which I think is really great with this mon, because for one thing, with Levitate, you're immune to ground, so you only have two other weaknesses, which is fighting and fire, and also just gives this thing so many resistances, which makes it infinitely better defensively compared to ice. It does still mean that like if I turn to a steel type, I still keep two of my weaknesses, which is fire and fighting, because he's already weak to those as an ice type. So that's not, you could say it's not like optimal, but I still think it's worth it because, you know, just the amount of resistances you gain when you turn steel type is super good. And again, just the steel type with levitate is always nice. And then for my other type, I chose electric because again, with levitate, that means he would have no weaknesses, and it also means I could run Terra Blast plus Ice Beam, and I could have that nice Bolt Beam coverage, the electric and ice, which is very good offensively and not resisted by a lot. So I was really excited for that. And yeah, Cryogonal's just, you know, really cool mon. It also gives me another pretty fast mon, which is good for my team. And yeah, I just think he's a really cool pick. I think he's really sick with Terra, and I'm excited to try him out. I think he's going to be really cool. And so at this point, I had, you know, 10 mons. You could have up to 12. At this point, I had like basically no points left because I had spent them all on these very good, awesome, cool, and epic Pokemon on my team. So I was looking at what was left, which you know, I was trying to see how should I spend my remaining points, and there was a mon that while not, you know, great on paper, I feel like did a lot for my team, and I'd really like I would appreciate to have it should, you know, the situation call for it. And that mon was none other than Thwackey. Now I have to take a moment to apologize to a player named Not in a Million Years, because he's a big Thwackey guy and he wanted to use him, but unfortunately I sniped it from him, which I feel bad about. But again, I am the villain of this draft league, so I suppose that is in character. So I have to apologize to him for that. Really, you know, pulled the rug out from under him, but it had to be done because the thing that Thwackey does for my team that I think is so useful is he gets up grassy terrain. Now, obviously, you know, Rillaboom also did this, but, you know, I couldn't pick Rillaboom because someone else picked him, and also, yeah, probably wouldn't have gotten him anyways because, you know, it was worth a lot more points than Thwackey. Thwackey was only worth 2 points, so it was more convenient for me. But the reason I wanted grassy terrain is just I think it just helps my team out so much because I have these two guys, right? Heatran and Ting-Lu, two mons that like to run like bulky defensive sets, but the problem with them is neither of them get any form of recovery. They don't have recover, roost, slack off. They don't get any of that, nothing like that. So both of them have to rely on leftovers if they want to heal themselves, which is not, you know, not like super optimal in a lot of cases, because if they get knocked off once, then, well, they can't heal anymore, which isn't great. But if I get up to grassy terrain, then they have another way to get HP back, which gives them a lot more longevity, which is really nice for me. It also helps out other mons on my team, like gives Pex more recovery, can boost my Decidueye's grass moves, gives the Answer recovery, which is real nice, and also, of course, it weakens moves like Earthquake and such, which is really great because I have mons like Heatran, Pex, Regieleki, Diancie that are all weak to Earthquake, and if I have the grassy terrain up, then they can take Earthquakes a lot better. So grassy terrain in general is just super good for my team, which is why I wanted Thwackey. And he also just gives me more, like, you know, utility with, you know, U-turn knockoff, that stuff. It is another grass type, which when I already have Decidueye, which isn't great, but I can also always just like Terra Decidueye, turn it to a different type, so it's not the worst thing ever. And yeah, I think, you know, he's a pretty decent support mon. I mean, these stats aren't like, you know, they're nothing that crazy because, you know, he is a not fully evolved mon. But, you know, for 2 points, I think, you know, he definitely does the job done. I think he definitely, you know, a lot faster than most other mons that would be worth 2 points. You know, he's as fast as Gallade, which is definitely not bad. And you know, the defenses aren't like that crazy, but, you know, with the Violite, he can take hits pretty decently, especially when he has the terrain recovery and all that stuff. So I just felt like, you know, it'd be nice to have on my team. Yeah, so that's why I picked him. And at this point, I did have 1 point left to pick a Terra Captain because, like I said, I already have Decidueye and Cryogonal, and Decidueye was worth 9 points, and Cryogonal was worth 5, and you only have 15 points for picking Terra Captain. So that means I could get a 1 point Terra Captain because I had the points left over, and so I was looking. I was like, well, are there any 1-pointers that would be worth me picking up? And I was looking over, and I mean, most of the mons in 1 point that are worth 1 point, they're not that good, which you could probably imagine. Like kind of just the bargain bin clearance mons. But I was looking, I was seeing is there any mons I can do something with? And in the end, I decided on Tinkatuff, because Tinkaton was picked a long time ago, and also I didn't have the points for it. Tinkatuff is I mean, he's worth 1 point, so he's not that crazy, but he does have some strong uses. He gets rocks, so he's another hazard setter. He's another mon with knockoff. He can T-Wave, and also just Fairy Steel is really good typing to have. And I think Tinkaton is a pretty good mon in draft. In regular singles OU whatever, I think it is a little underwhelming, but I think in draft it does give a team a lot. And so I figured, well, someone else already picked Tinkaton, but I could have the next best thing, I suppose, because this is also another Eviolite mon, and this thing with Eviolite is pretty bulky. Offenses are definitely a little lacking, but I think the supportive capabilities of this thing are at least decent. And yeah, with Terra I can change its type. For the types I just chose Fairy and Steel because I thought those were already really good types, and then the third one I made Flying because I feel like it'd just be nice defensively, become immune to ground and all that. And yeah, so that was my final pick of the draft, and I'll be honest, I wasn't Tinkatuff. He's kind of filler, honestly, because I was just well, I have 1 point left for a Terra Captain, may as well. But if I'm being honest, I'm not that sure how much use I'll get out of him in the season, and I may end up trading him out for something else, but we'll have to see. I'm undecided on that. But yeah, so that is my team for Season 3 of the PPFC. I'm really happy with it. I think it's one of, if not the strongest team in the whole league, because there are some pretty strong teams out there, but I don't know, mine I feel like is a little bit, it's kind of cut above the rest, if you ask me, or at least it's a close, it's a contender for one of the best teams. I think I've had a really nice draft, and I'm really happy with how my team turned out. I think it's super solid, very hard to get through, and I'm very excited to use these mons in the next few weeks. So I should have my week 1 match will be coming up. I should have a video out on that in the next few days, so get hyped for that. I hope you guys are excited for the draft content, and yeah, hope you guys are rooting for the Detroit Diggersbys, your local Pokemon draft team run by yours truly, the squad leader. So yeah, hope you guys are excited for that. Yeah, that's my team. That's pretty much all I have to say, I think. So thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys later with my week 1 match whenever that happens. So take care.